morning, everyone. And I am not an engineer, I'm a politician, but I will, since we have a lot of speakers, I'll try to set the tone by being brief and to the point. As governor of Pennsylvania during my 8 years, one of my goals was to bring wireless technology and broadband to every citizen of the Commonwealth. We had an opportunity to do this in my first term when we reauthorized our Telecommunications Act, Act 30, and we put in incentives and disincentives for our wireless service providers to go into the 9% of Pennsylvania that's uncovered. Now, you may say 9%, that's not much, but in a state of 12.5 million people, that meant 1 million people plus, and a number of thousands of small businesses didn't have access in Pennsylvania. And that hurt those areas. They were mostly rural and mountainous areas, hurt those areas economically in ways that are difficult to recount. And Sanjeev is right when he says this is an engineering issue, not a political issue. This is one of those issues where the politicians should step aside and let the engineers work out a solution. That, I think, is our key message today, and it's a message brought to you by politicians. Here we stand, we're federal officials and state and local officials. We're Democrats, we're Republicans. We're from urban areas, we're from rural areas. All across America, we would benefit from an engineering solution to this problem. There isn't a single person in this room, or for that matter, a single person in this country, who won't benefit by having LightSquared's wireless network come into being. If you're not served right now, if you're not covered, you will be covered. If you're covered right now, you'll get better service. For example, I live in Philadelphia, the fifth largest city in the country. But in my neighborhood, the neighborhood of East Falls, you cannot get AT&T. My staff brought me an iPad. Very little chance I'd become adept at the iPad, but I couldn't even begin because it's an AT&T iPad and we don't get service in my house. It's hard to believe. I live 5 miles from the business district in Philadelphia, and we couldn't get service. All Americans will benefit by the innovation that Sanjeev talked about and by competition. Having LightSquared in the marketplace will drive down prices. So no matter what provider you use, you will benefit if LightSquared gets approved. Next, we have a spectrum crunch in this country. I think everybody knows this. Last month, for the first time, there are now more wireless devices in this country than there are people. And the FCC estimates that in 2 years, unless we do something, the demand will outstrip our available spectrum. So it is incumbent upon us to do something. And we are falling behind. The country that invented wireless, that invented broadband, is now ranked 18th. We have the 18th best wireless broadband infrastructure in the world, 18th. And it's stunning, some of the countries that we are behind. And we're falling further and further behind because we're not doing anything. Our European competitors are doing something. And when we fall behind like this, it puts us at a competitive disadvantage in the global marketplace. And we need to fix that and fix it fast. And what's great about LightSquared is we are the single most ready opportunity to get additional service, additional spectrum into the United States marketplace. Sanjeev told Senator Hutchinson, Senator Dorgan, and I that he thinks within 9 months we could begin providing service in some areas. Within 9 months of the go-ahead, that is ready to roll. That's, to use President Obama's quote, that's almost shovel-ready. And speaking of President Obama, he has made it a national goal, and it's a good goal, to provide wireless service to 98% of America. This is a step in that direction. But as we're going towards that direction, a direction that will make us more economically competitive, it's going to help the economy. Well, LightSquared is prepared to invest $14 billion into the economy and create 15,000 new jobs. Jobs that obviously can't be outsourced, jobs that pay on an average over $100,000 a year. Think of the impact that would make to our economy. So we need to do this. We need to step aside, let there be an engineering solution. This is not a choice between GPS and LightSquared. Those are false choices. If the industry is trying to say it's either or, they're wrong. And every time there's been a request for LightSquared to do something, the company under Sanjeev's leadership has proved itself to be flexible. Right now, the Defense Department estimates that with proper filtering, you need about a 4 megahertz guard band to make sure that there won't be any interference. Light Squared has an offer on the table to do a 23 megahertz guard band. An incredible offer, 6 times over what the Defense Department thinks is reasonable with proper filtration. So, like so many things facing our country, we've got to move. We've got to act. We've got to end the gridlock. And the best way to do it is for the politicians to steer clear, let the engineers drive a settlement here, and let's get moving in the benefit, not just of Light Squared, but the benefit of all Americans. And now it's my pleasure to introduce someone who I've admired for a long time, who has been a senator who puts ideology aside and puts the interests of the American people first, Byron Dorgan. And Senator Dorgan, unfortunately, has to leave for another Senate matter as soon as he's finished speaking, but I'm sure he'd be, for members of the press, you can catch up with him later. Senator?